Okay, for tonight's homework, I'm going to have you focus on the 4 most missed problems on that Module 1 test that you will again see on the benchmark. They are this one where you're writing an equation, looking at a table, this geometric sequence one, this other geometric sequence one, and then another geometric simple interest problem. So those geometric ones were the challenging ones. I want you to write all the work you're about to see and write down the 5 words to get either full credit or from my honors classes extra credit. So here we go. First problem is the geometric one, where I need you to see that I am dividing by 2 as I go down this sequence, dividing by 2, dividing by 2. But remember, we never show dividing by 2 in these recursive forms or these sequences. We show dividing by 2 as multiplying by the reciprocal of 2, multiplying by 1/2, by 1/2, by 1/2. As soon as I see I'm timesing by 1/2, automatically I know it's geometric. Remember, these are the first, second, third, and fourth and fifth term, going back to that 0 term, the opposite of timesing by 1/2, going to the left, timesing by 2. So 96 times 2 gives me that 0 term, which is 192. So again, geometric, because you're timesing, that means it's exponential, another word for that. And if I was to graph it, it would have that curved look where it has no common constant rate of change. Alright, the recursive form is always f of x equals f of x minus 1 times 1/2. And again, notice that recursive form, I haven't plugged in anything for x. That's just the raw form. Any term is the one before it times 1/2. To find the fourth term, use the f4, the third term, 24, times 1/2. That's how I get 12. To find this fifth term, use the one before it, for the fourth term, 12 times 1/2, 6. The first word is come, C-O-M-E, come. Alright, next problem. To find the 10th term, I want you to use either the explicit forms. So the first one is f of x equals the 0 term, 192, times 1/2 raised to the x power just by itself. Or the other one is f of x equals the first term, not the 0 term, 92, 192, the first term, 96, times 1/2 raised to the x minus 1 power. Alright, to evaluate this for the 10th term, I'm going to take probably this top one here. I'm going to plug in x as 10 and show you what happens. So the function at 10, there's a 10 there showing what I'm plugging in, is 192 times 1/2 to the 10th power. And again, I leave the 192, I raise 1/2 to the 10th power first. Again, know that you're timesing 10 of those 1/2s, timesing 10 of them. So when you're timesing all 10 of those, you just multiply the ones on top. Straight across stays 1. And then you multiply all the 2's on the bottom, which you could easily do on your calculator by doing 2 raised to the 10th power. But that becomes 192 times this to the 10th power, 1 over 1024. And again, putting this over 1, timesing straight across, and either leaving my fraction or writing it in one of these other forms. So the 10th term is 192 over 1024. Or if I used the first term, it would be 96 over 5112, I believe. Or if I reduce that all the way, I believe that reduces down to 3/16. Or if you write that as a decimal, that is the whole decimal. Don't want to round these really. 0.01875. All those answers are acceptable. All right, next problem. This one, again, using the table to find your slope and then backtracking to the zero term to find your y-intercept. So the change in x is going up by 4, going up by 4, going up by 4. The change in y is going down by 2, going down by 2. If I put that together as slope with my rise over run or my change in y over my change in x, again, m slope, common difference d in the function notation equals -2 over 4. I'm going to reduce that down by dividing top and bottom by 2 to get -1/2. That is my slope. That number goes automatically in front of x. Some of you forgot to type the negative. A lot of you forgot to type the x. You can't forget that. Forgetting to type in the x takes a lot of points off this problem. Alright, for the table, to try to backtrack to x is 0. So again, here's the x term right here. And then I'm filling in these numbers that you can't see, going up 1, 0. Of course, if I went to -1 and I get up to that -2, going down by 1, want to show you what's happening here. So every time I'm going down the column, going down by 1/2. When I'm doing the opposite and going up, adding by 1/2. So this term 2 minus 1/2 gives me 1 and 1/2. Going up, 2 plus 1/2, 2 and 1/2 plus another 1/2 gives me 3. So that is my y-intercept. So that gives me -1/2 x plus 3. The second word is in. Alright, the third of the fourth. Is this geometric where I'm timesing by 2? Timesing by 2, timesing by 2. That lets me know it's geometric, it's exponential. That is the first term, second, third, fourth. I tell you it's the first term, but even if that was not there, we assume that you know 10 is the first term. Going back to the 0 term, I'm doing the opposite, dividing by 2 or timesing by 1/2. So 1/2 times 10 to get to that 0 term gives me 5. And then again, I would suggest not looking at these choices, but just write the answers that you know. F of x for these explicit geometrics is the 0 term times r raised to just the x power. Or I could write it as f of x equals the first term 10 times that same r number 2 raised to the x minus 1 power. And I could see now how they're trying to fake me out. This one is close, but it's got the wrong power up there. This one is completely backwards with the 10 and the 2 flip-flopped. This one again is close, but it has x minus 1 up there. This is the 1. The third word is 4. Okay, last problem. This interest problem. And again, trying to show you the buttons on the calculator, how I'd like you to do it. But this problem is f of x, always these are geometric, never adding, subtracting, arithmetic. Geometric, remember the form is the 0 term times r to the x. For this problem, that 500 is the 0 term, goes right there. That 6% written as 1.06 to make something increase by just its whole part plus a little bit. 1.06 is my common ratio, my r. So the equation that I'm going to use is 500 times 1.06 raised to the x power. So again, this generic equation, f of x equals 500 times 1.06 to the x power. I'm going to use it now. I'm going to evaluate this for the fifth term, or 5 years. Leave that 500 alone, times 1.06 raised to the fifth power. Notice I type that in exactly, 500 times 1.06, caret button right here for your exponent to the fifth power. And of course, when I do that, I'm going to need to round that to 2 decimal places, again using the caret button, the times. That gives me the fifth term, or after 5 years, $669. 0.1127 is what I'm going to write. I'm rounding for money here, so I'm rounding to the hundredth spot, looking at the number to the right of it. If that's 4 or less, leave that rounding number alone. If that was 5 or more, that would go up by 2. It's not. So leave the 669 alone and the 11 cents. That is how much is in the account. The fourth word is help. Help. All right, so again, I need my students. If you need help, please come in at any time. I will help you. The fifth and final word is now. Now. Good luck.